The cashless society is nearly here. Your days of economic freedom are essentially over already. All transactions are monitored. There's no way that you can move a digital penny around without it being tracked. Cash is one method of giving people the ability to hold on to their currency in its tangible form. But as far as the bankers and governments are concerned, that's bad for business. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we are going to look at what the IMF's paper talks about. The introduction of a global cashless society. Let's begin. This is the IMF working paper. It's entitled The Macroeconomics of Decashing. All right. There are a lot of suggestions in here, a lot of claims, a lot of information. I will just get to some that I feel that is most important. You can read through the document for yourself if you're interested. It is rather long, but if you just want to get some of the points out of it, I would just suggest reading the introduction and the conclusion, and that would give you somewhat of a general overview of what it is. In fact, they cover most of the points within this introduction and conclusion, so that should be enough. Decashing is defined as a gradual phasing out of the currency from circulation and its replacement with convertible deposits. All right? This is their suggestion, by the way, remember. This initiative does not in any way target the abolition of money as an institution, but is rather a sweeping reduction of the role of currency, its cash component, in favor of transferable deposits, its non-cash component. So essentially, let's get rid of that old paper money and let's use this thing that we'll call transferable deposits or convertible deposits. To the average individual, they might not really notice the difference. Basically, you can take your money, you can go to the bank, and you can buy whatever you need. So as far as you're concerned as the consumer, no big difference. You're just going to be using digital means versus paper means. And on the back end, they'll make some changes along the way, but essentially we'll be dealing with a completely cashless society. That is the goal. The monetary authorities in many countries have already taken steps towards decashing, and that's what I've covered here over the years. These steps include, now check this out, abolishing large denomination bills, we've seen that before, imposing ceilings on cash transactions, you've heard me say it, introducing declaration requirements on the carriage of cash in and out of the country, capital controls, of course, reporting requirements for cash payments exceeding a specified amount. We know that's always a very small amount as far as I'm concerned, and even taxing cash transactions. And that, my friends, is one of the major goals. Oh, you want to pay with cash? No problem. You'll just have to pay this fee. Today the fee might be 5%, tomorrow it's 10%, and eventually it would need to get to a point where it just becomes cost prohibitive to use cash. If they want to prevent you from using cash, they'll just make it as difficult as possible. Stores will stop accepting it, and you will find it easier and easier to use the transferable deposits. And so more businesses, more people will just go that way, and it will phase itself out. The purpose of this paper is to suggest a simple framework for the analysis of the macroeconomic implications of decashing. It goes through this, and actually just below this, number 3, I believe it is, it says basically, we're not taking sides, and we don't want it either way. All we're doing is making some suggestions. We're just pointing to, the pros and cons. But if you read the actual document, it's about 95% in favor of a cashless society. So I can see where the bias definitely is. Starting from a traditional savings investment balance, the paper develops a 4-sector macroeconomics framework which allows for the tracing of key implications of decashing for any country. That's what I was saying with the global issue here. They do mention various countries throughout and talk about the EU, and they make all these different claims. And it's definitely advocating the use of these convertible deposits versus cash. They're saying cash is bad. Now, they're not talking about coins in terms of precious metals. That doesn't get a mention in here, except considering it to be a relic. And they basically just talk about cash, as if cash is all there is. So I'll move on just to show you a little bit more, because like I said, it is quite long, it's quite detailed. Let me just quickly go into one of the points further along in this document. Decashing by a shift towards transferable deposits reflects a natural drive towards economic flexibility and growth. And they're really pushing for it here. It should be seen as a long-term project and does not suggest an immediate move to a cashless society. I just wanted to show you this primarily because they use the words cashless society. And they're not doing, I mean, you can see how it's written here. It's not as if they're suggesting that, you know, this isn't the proper term. That's their term. Although some countries will most likely decash in a few years, going completely cashless should be phased in steps. The decashing process should build on the initial and largely uncontested steps, such as the phasing out of large denomination bills, the placement of ceilings, and the reporting of cash that moves across the border. There are all sorts of capital controls going in today. If you want to move cash from one place to another, it is extremely difficult. And they get into the issues that they claim anyway, of the, you know, certain individuals, maybe nefarious acts that are taking place. And so people use cash to do that. People use methods to conceal their transactions. However, it can happen. And they basically say that we need to get everybody on this cashless society to be able to determine where money moves, and therefore we can tax it as much as we need to. We can control it fully, and that is the best option. It's good for the economy, it's good for the banking system, it's good for the governments, it's good for the people being able to go to the stores and use their digital means. Well, I haven't given my opinion yet, so hang in there. All right, now further steps include creating economic incentives to reduce the use of cash in transactions, simplifying the opening and use of transferable deposits, and further computerizing the financial system. Basically, do everything in your power to make it that people want to use those methods versus the older methods of cash and being able to transact in between two individuals without the knowledge of a third party. The private sector-led decashing seems preferable to the public sector. And it goes into there to the issues I was just talking about. I mean, you have any issue between power outage and you know, some other issues that have taken place. Well, that's all great to talk about this, but think about the implications of going cashless. Make sure to click on the link to watch the second part of this video. I will get into all the different countries and all the different methods that they are using in order to implement a cashless society. The link will be in the description of this video, or you can check my channel, The Money GPS.